Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run.
Welcome to be my guest. This is Jan Lewis, your host. Today we have Mike Zeis, and he is a photographer, and he's going to share with us his love letter to the Upton State Forest. Welcome, Mike. How are you?
Thank you, Jan. I'm
Good.
happy to be here.
Good.
I'm, this is Upton. I live in Uxbridge, a half hour away, and I'm a regular visitor to Upton because I go to the Upton State Forest. It came a time when the doctor said, "Mike, you got to get some exercise." And I ignored him for a good number of years, but finally, when it took, I found that not joining a gym was my thing.
Yeah.
That walking in the woods was good for me. It's therapeutic for the soul, and it did get my heart going. So I went to the Upton State Forest, and I tried most of the trails there. And let me, if you just hold this
We're
for
gonna
me.
hold this right here.
This
There
is
you go.
my regular route. I do this several times a week. I start on, I park over here. I take the middle road.
You have to go up higher. Yep.
Okay, I take Middle Road down to Hawk. I take Hawk to Sparrow. Sparrow down to Whitehall. Whitehall over to Grouse. And, Whitehall goes along the swamp, and Grouse has a serious up on it. For those people who know it, that's a pretty good hill. I back over to Loop Road, onto Hawk again, and that's where it becomes a figure eight. I take Hawk all the way down to where I can pick up the very bottom of the Whistling Cave trail, and I take that on up to Park Road and back to the parking lot again. All of that's about 2 hours. And along the way, a lot of the time I have a camera, and if I don't have a camera, I go back and get one.
Did you design this,
So-
by the way, Mike?
That route?
No. Did you design what we just held up?
Oh, the map is is what you pick up at the kiosk
Okay.
at the entrance to
Yeah.
the park. I just scanned it in and
Great.
marked it in blue with where my trail is. All of the photos today were taken along that trail through the four seasons, and I have sequenced them. We'll start in the spring because we're in the spring now, and it's such an exciting time when the snow goes away, and it does change the way the forest looks. Let me switch to this sheet here. And this is the first one up. This is an example of what happens in the springtime. Here you see the color green.
I'm going to raise it, Mike.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
see the color green here. And that green is moss on a mossy log. What you see in the spring is the reflections, because this little pool has water in the spring. During the summer months, it's not even mud. It's very, very dry. But in the spring, it's nice and wet. And the reflections, actually, the combination of seeing color after the snow all that time is such a relief. You go back to the parking lot, you get your camera, and you take the picture.
I love the colors to come up.
And this particular shot is...
Can you get that? Is it high enough for you?
Yeah, this is a little mini waterfall, and by mini waterfall, I'd say that this is probably about 4 inches high.
Yeah.
This is way in the depths of the Whistling Cave Trail. The Whistling Cave Trail is just wonderful because if you start from the Dean Pond end of the Whistling Cave Trail, you walk up through a boulder field, and you pass the cluster of boulders that actually make the Whistling Cave. And then you descend into a couple of swampy areas. And this particular one has water in it almost year-round, but in the summertime it makes a little mini waterfall, which in the depths of this sort of quiet forest really gives you an aural sense, a wonderful, wonderful sound. And at the time I had with me my pinhole camera, which is this. This is a 35 millimeter film camera that I pried out. I'll open up this thing. I pried out the lens and put in a little sheet of aluminum foil that had a pin in it. That's a weird kind of camera to use. No lens whatsoever. What you have when you do that is no focus. You have no exposure. You don't know what you're taking a picture of, except I knew I'd get the waterfall. Very long exposures, which is why you see more or less gauze here instead of drops of water. And everything is sort of equally fuzzy or equally in focus, if you want to call it that, although focus isn't really a term you use when you haven't got a lens.
Right. I see your Jack in the Pulpit over there, too, coming up.
Well, yes, that's part of spring, in my view. And so this is the camera I use for that. It's it started life as a crude camera. point and shoot 35 millimeter, and by putting a pinhole in it, I made it even cruder. This particular shot actually won an international pinhole photography prize. There was a contest, and I won the contest, which meant they sent me through the mail from the Netherlands another pinhole camera. So you got to love that kind of enthusiasm for the crude cameras. The next one is, as you said, the lady slipper. If you could hold that lady slipper
There you go,
up for
girls.
me.
Look at how beautiful. Huh?
The lady slipper is a later in the spring.
Beautiful.
If you're walking in the Upton State Forest, you'll see one day you'll see one lady slipper, and the next day you might see 5, and then 2 days later there'll be 25. And then 3 days after that, they're all gone. So
Yeah.
it really is, you got to be there the week they're blooming, otherwise you're going to miss them.
Yeah.
So in this case, to get the shot, the camera I had, the camera du jour, was this point and shoot HP digital camera.
Uh-huh.
And it's a low light situation. I almost always hike very early in the
Right
morning.
up so people can take a look at that.
Sure. I always hike very early in the morning, and so there's not a lot of light. And the camera comes with its own flash, which is right up there. And from my perspective, an on-camera flash is something to avoid. It almost never gives you anything that's good. There's
How
too
much do
light.
those run for, Mike?
Oh, well, this... I would say less than $100.
Okay. It's not too
This
bad.
one is so old that, it's literally not... It's an antique by now.
I like the
So-
way it looks, though. It looks easy.
Oh, it is slick.
Yeah.
It is a slick camera. It did a lot.
Yeah.
But I make the easy complicated because I didn't want to have. I had low light situation. I wanted to get this beautiful flower, but I wanted to have light from the side,
Sure.
other than from the front. So to set that up, I made this little thing, which is a baffle. It stops. It fits on right over the flash like this, and you tape the thing on. And that sends the light going backwards instead of at the flower. And in back, I have a regular flash that I bounce off of this card. It's a piece of mat board that I carry with me.
The whiteboard, yeah.
So I put this mat board and prop it up with sticks and put a real flash right in front of it with the optical sensor. So this camera sends back a signal to the optical sensor, which knocks the flash off, and then it puts the light just where I want it.
Good.
Also, by making the light bigger, it gives us softer shadows, which is also a plus. I hope I love this. I love the Upton State Forest, and I also love messing around with these cameras.
Yeah.
So I hope you.
I can see a little bit of Ansel Adams beside you with the black and white
for
over here.
goodness sake!
That's all right. My husband loves black and white.
Oh, yeah, but Ansel Adams, the paragon. I don't want to be compared to Ansel Adams. This. Are we still in spring? Yes, we are. This very unusual picture, a tall, thin picture. And this is of the swampy area that you park your car next to when you go into the Upton State Forest. This is a place that's blocked off in the wintertime. In the spring, they open up the gate, and you can drive right along the swamp. And when I approach there, I turn the car radio off, I turn the heater off if it's on, I roll the windows down, and that way I can listen to the swamp. And there's a little trickle of water. This time of year, spring peepers.
Sure.
Maybe the sound of a duck paddling away because he hears my car. The camera that took that is this Brownie 616.
Oh, yeah.
Look at this behemoth. This took, they call it the 616, and that's the size of film it took, which they don't make anymore. And so I bought the camera at a so-called antique store. And I learned that you can put 120 size film, which they still make, in the camera, and it sits inside, just about like that, inside the camera. And it makes an image that is that big. But I also found that you can put 35 millimeter film, and if you just hold this up for me, I'll
Oh,
demonstrate.
looks like a box, huh?
I'll demonstrate. Well, they call it. Hold it the other way, please, Jan.
You want it backwards?
Yeah, backwards.
Oh.
That will show you how the 35 millimeter film fits inside the camera, and that explains why I get these long, thin shots. So when I have 35 millimeter film sitting in here, I don't know whether you can see it, but I've blocked off the viewfinder with little pieces of Post-it notes, so that when I look through it, I can be reminded that of where to position my subject.
We're talking with Mike Zeis, and he is a photographer. This is his dedication to the Upton State Forest.
All of these photos were taken, most of them on film and in the Upton State Forest. So this, the thing that attracted me about this picture is that it is indeed a reflection. I'm here to explain it, otherwise it's not explainable. And it shows this twisted trunk and the reflection of the twisted trunk. So if I'm carrying a camera around that needs a tall, thin subject, this is a good one for me.
Right.
And still into the spring, just as you walk from the main parking lot where the CCC buildings are, and if you go to the beginning of the trails, which is in the other parking lot, you go over a little rise. And if you're there at sunrise, which I was on this day, the sun just comes in and hits those little things that are starting to grow there. And because they're backlit, they shine. They positively shine with color. So again, I had my pinhole camera out, and an aspect of the pinhole camera is that it can blast the sun through if you're looking at the sun. And I really, even though that's a flaw, I appreciate it. It's not something you plan for, but when it happens, I'm happy to see it. So again, the sign of spring is that the forest floor comes alive.
Mike, how could people get a hold of you if they'd like to have some pictures done?
It's I have to read on my business card. Mike at ZeisPhotos.com. ZeisPhotos.com.
There you go.
There's also a website there, so you can click and see some of the things that I've been working on.
Everything you do, is it basically nature, which is beautiful? Is it that?
No. This is a focus for today, but a lot of what I shoot is abandoned buildings.
Oh, I love that.
I just had a show at Alternatives Gallery in Whitensville with my wife of 40 or so photographs that we had taken in abandoned asylums. Alternatives is is in essence the alternative to what the asylums were.
Have you been up to the old Westboro State Hospital?
I would have to say yes.
Oh, it's
2 months ago I had to say no, but yes, I've been there.
Yeah. There's a lot of buildings out here.
Yes, yes. So we had a show of our photos of abandoned asylums. Also, I take photographs of kitsch, roadside oddities. If somebody has 2 pink flamingos, I'll drive right by. But if they've got 12 or 20, I'm stopping. I'm taking a picture. So,
why not?
So that's the kind of thing I take a picture of. And let's go to another here. Let's see, I put an arrow on this one just so that I'd understand which end is up.
Okay.
Take a look at that, Jen.
Yeah.
Now, this is a particular kind of lichen that's on a stone. I used this camera. This is a Kodak Duoflex camera that was the Duoflex line had a 40-year lifespan with the Kodak company, and this was the first version of it. They went through many iterations. This is designed to take pictures from 15 feet and beyond. But this, from another camera, look at this little tiny thing, is what they call a diopter. In essence, it's a magnifying lens. And so I get my good old masking tape out, and I tape this on here, and it allows me to get a close-up. But as with the pinhole camera, you really don't see what you're taking a picture of. So a subject like this, where the rock is rounded, means that something is going to be in focus.
Right.
And this is, and it really gave me a perspective of the leafy nature of this particular lichen.
Definitely.
And again, this is black and white. I'm not saying again because it's the first time, but this is a black and white film I use frequently, and I develop my own black and white film.
Do you have a studio, like, at home? Or do you go
Well, I have a place where I put all my stuff. I guess you could call that a studio.
Sure. Do you go many places and do exhibits at fairs and all?
I have been to art fairs. It's been a few years since I've been to...
Get your work out there.
And art.
See,
yes.
Definitely.
That was a lot of fun. So I have a single picture of summer. And that's
I
this
love
one.
this. Is that a...
It is a hawk, and I don't know which kind.
I love
now,
that.
as I was walking, my tactic is to walk up the grouse trail, and at the beginning of summer, I started on my morning walk getting dive bombed by this hawk. And so I had to set myself up with a camera. I brought a camera and a telephoto lens and estimated the light and sat in position.
I love this.
And for 2 or 3 days in a row, I took a lot of pictures of this hawk.
Yeah.
It's not National Geographic quality, but at the point I got this shot, I said, I'm not going to bother this creature anymore.
Yeah.
And I stopped using the grouse trail because he was dive bombing me, or she was dive bombing me because there was a nest nearby. And I just felt that,
Yeah.
I could get better pictures if I kept on going, but it was not fair to the creature.
Yeah.
So I let it go.
Great picture.
Thank you.
We have a hawk near us too. I remember going for a walk. They just stare at you if you.
Well, I guess so. If you're going near their nest, they'll do more than stare. I really was concerned, Jan, because it was taking aim.
He was ready to go.
It knew the trail and it was swooping down the trail at me. So
you were a beginner.
What I didn't attack the hawk, but I used a walking stick, and instead of using it like a walking stick, I held it up so that it was above my head like an umbrella, and that was just so that it would be an obstruction in case the hawk did want to sort of get a talon in my ears or something like that.
Yeah. You might eat your ear for supper.
We didn't want that. No,
we don't want that.
The one I have the one and only shot for us.
Yeah.
It's not. I've got more, but I didn't bring them today. Fall is next.
Oh, look at that.
And here is the swamp that we park next to.
Yeah.
And I love swamps. There's a vegetation in them is a lot of fun. There's always something going on. There's a lot of wildlife around there. When I say fun for the vegetation, you see things that you really don't in the forest floor.
Yeah.
And this swamp has become more and less swampy depending on what the beaver activity is.
What part of the state forest is it in?
Well, this is right by the parking lot. Literally, this photograph was taken within 50 feet of where you park your car.
Yeah.
Now, this is not the main seat where the CCC buildings are. It's in the alternate parking lot.
I would never have thought,
Within 50 feet. And, a misty morning is, for a lot of photographs, a misty morning. It was a misty morning when I had to use my flash to get the photograph of the flower, lady slipper. Same kind of morning here, except the mist worked to my advantage here.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We're talking with Mike Zeis, and he is a professional photographer, and he is doing a salute to our Upton State Forest, beautiful photos that he's taken.
So here...
Oh, look at the mushrooms.
Here are mushrooms, a gang of mushrooms.
There you go.
This is another one that was taken. Remember I showed you earlier that pinhole photograph that won the prize of the little waterfall?
Yeah.
This is right next to the little waterfall. It was a tree trunk that the tree itself had long gone away, and all that was left was a tree. And I saw these bunches of eye level, these mushrooms growing. And, I'm a frequent visitor, and they weren't there a few days before. So they grew very, very fast.
Wow.
I didn't have my cameras with me. So I did go, I said, I gotta get not only cameras, I have to get lighting equipment. It's in the car. So right there I had a decision. From that point, if you've been on the Whistling Cave Trail, there is a long way of going back or a longer way of going back to the car to get your camera.
Yeah.
I chose the long way, which was to go up that steep hill and back down again. So let me just show you the, you can hold that up. Maybe we'll get both of them going at once.
All right. Now what's that?
This is the setup, the light setup I used in order to get those photos.
Very good.
And I got a big umbrella because I want to have nice soft light. And it was a rare chance to look at unless you pick it, you don't get to see the underside of these mushrooms.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have the light going in more or less slightly up.
Yep, and what you're seeing here is going right up that tree in that picture.
And I did, so this shows the setup, and I stood, right in there. The flash wasn't directly on it, but from the side. You can see one flash was not enough to overpower the daylight, so I had to tape another one on here. So you see two flashes in the masking tape holding it on. And I have to say, this is in the fall, and the mosquitoes were out in force.
I know, I've been over there. I got eaten alive.
Even though I had the bug stuff on, you're trying to adjust all of these things at the same time.
Those mosquitoes are vicious over there.
Yeah. So these are the things you suffer for your art. So we're about to move into winter.
Go for it.
And here's a photograph. This also is, this is about maybe a half mile from the parking lot. Another one where I saw it and went back for the camera, but it wasn't exactly such a long slog. And this is ice. You can tell right up here in the corner is a leaf frozen in the ice, just to give you a feel of perspective. And I was able with this to shoot straight down onto this particular arcs that the ice made. Let me show you the camera that took that picture. This behemoth, it's called the Coney Omega Rapid. It probably weighs about 5 pounds. It is an all analog camera from the late 50s. The slight story, I won't go into too much of a diversion. It can be a long story.
Where do you get
but
that?
This particular one came to me along with a speed graphic camera from a person I worked with who was a image scientist. His father, after he retired from the New York City Police Department in the late 50s, set himself up as a wedding photographer. This was his small camera for weddings. His big camera was the 4x5 press camera, the speed graphic.
Sure.
And so this guy was hauling all this gear around to take pictures of weddings. Now, my friend Peter was no longer using the camera. It had sat in his shelf for a long time, and he knew how passionate I was about using these cameras. So he put them in a box and gave it to me and said, at some point, Mike, I'll take some money for it. But for now, please use them. And this... one of the reasons it's called Coney Omega Rapid is because it's got this crank on the side. Let's see if I can make it work. That would move the frame forward. And with 120 film, this is loose on a spool, it has the precision built in to advance the frame exactly the amount till the next frame. So that's one of many things that makes this such a heavyweight camera. And it's also a great deal of precision. Probably the best lens that I own is in this camera. And, still more in the winter. This one, these are the little twigs on the forest floor. You know, the photo didn't look all that exciting straight, so I reversed it. So we're looking actually at what the negative looked like. When I got the negatives back, I said, "Man, look at that." So that's the way I printed it.
That's how it did it. Yeah.
That's the way I printed it. So that rhymes with the winter for me.
I love what's coming up, but this is gorgeous with the sunlight on the trees.
And this again,
I like.
This one is with like I've showed you, mostly film film cameras. Some of them pretty funky, and at least one of them a very high precision tool. And I do own the digital cameras and know how to use them. And this is one that came from a digital camera.
I love this.
This again, you can see right back here where I'm putting my finger is the parking lot. So this particular scene is 15 steps away from the parking lot. So to appreciate the outdoors, you don't have to walk 2 hours like I do. You can go there and even sit in your car and enjoy this Upton State Forest.
When did you get interested in photography, Mike?
I have had a camera since I was a kid. I had a Brownie camera, but my real interest came when I was served in Vietnam. Most people would buy a 35 millimeter camera at the PX and start taking pictures.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. The things that appealed to me about getting an official camera and taking real pictures was the ability to take low light pictures at night. I was really intrigued by that as a young man. And I also liked the way 35 millimeter single lens reflex camera would give you a preview of what you're going to take. You get to see what you're going to take a picture of, as opposed to waiting. Did
you bring back a lot of pictures from Nam?
No, not a lot. I took a lot. None of them. Well, I got a few.
Sure.
A lot is sort of relative. Nothing compared to when we had kids. You took pictures like a madman. But the other thing I liked about it was the ability to have soft focus, or a depth of field that allows some things to be, your subject to be in focus, and the things behind and in front of your subjects not to be in focus. So those were the three things that made me want to pursue photography, the ability to use those techniques in taking my pictures.
Did you know in high school what you wanted to do?
Oh, no.
No, you didn't even know yet, right?
Oh, yeah, we could. I didn't know what I wanted to do in college either.
Oh, who did? I didn't either. Where'd you go to school, Mike?
I went to school, Nassau Community College on Long Island and State University of New York at Albany.
Yeah.
After that, I got an English degree and moved to the Boston area to begin a market research career.
Yeah, and that's what you did. You went into marketing research.
Market research, yeah. I did that both for other companies, other publishers, mostly, exclusively in the high-tech arena for about 30 years. And then the last 4 years of my working life, I was a business journalist doing research for a publication covering the business aspects of the healthcare industry. And so I wrote and they published a monthly research project.
Right.
Based on getting in touch with executives in the healthcare community.
I would think with your beautiful artwork, your photography, that it would grace a lot of the waiting rooms and corporate lobbies, things like that. Do you do that at all?
That has come up, yeah. Actually, I took, restaurants as well.
Yeah, sure.
I've got restaurants for customers. One of my early signs of a beat up, I told you I do a lot of roadside photography, and in Rochester, New York, I saw one of those neon signs where they kept the sign, and it says liquors. And they kept the sign because they were still selling liquor there, and it wasn't in the good part of town.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of area I like to take my pictures, Jan.
Yeah, sure.
So this really had become a home for pigeons. And there I was with my camera taking pictures of it, and it really, really quite beat.
Yeah.
And so I got a call from a guy in Toronto who was opening up a club.
Yeah, sure.
And he wanted to have a banner-sized print of this beat-up old liquor sign.
Sure.
And I said, man, I'm happy to hear from you. Because finding people who appreciate that, not only appreciate it, but then are willing to pay for it, that's a special thing.
This has been fun having Mike on. And Mike, we've got just a couple minutes left. How can people reach you again?
Let me read it again then.
Good luck with this.
It's Mike at ZeisPhotos.com.
That's Zeis.
PHOTOS.com.
Are you open if somebody says, gee, I saw you on the show, we'd love to have an exhibit, would you like to be part of it?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I do portraits too.
Good.
So
That's
if
great.
people want a portrait, interiors, I just, a recent assignment was to take pictures from another artist who had a display in a gallery
Yeah.
of 40 photos, and I went to the gallery and took pictures
Terrific.
of all of the
Mike, thanks for
photos.
being with us.
Jan, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
We'll see you next time. I'll be my guest.
Bye now.